What's up, Lazy Dog fam? Hope everybody out there is having a fantastic day. Today we need to do a little work in the greenhouse, get some more seeds started. We got quite a few different varieties of okree that we're going to be trialing this spring, so we need to get those planted in the trays. We've got a bunch of flower seeds we need to get started as well that we'll eventually be planting out in our vegetable gardens. And then once we're done in the greenhouse, I want to show you something that I've been doing with our tomato plants lately to kind of give them an extra early boost. But before we plant some more seeds, I want to tell you about this package I got in the mail the other day with a lot of interesting information in it. So I had no idea this was coming, just got a box in the mail, and it was from this company here called Go Seed. And they sent me a lot of brochures and stuff, even some hats, cups, all kind of good stuff in there. And so this particular company here is the one that is the breeder for a lot of the clovers and some of the other cover crops we grow on our homestead. So that Balanza clover that we grew this year that our chickens grazed on for quite a while, they produce that seed. They also do the frosty berseem clover that we grew, I think it was last year, maybe year before last. We really liked it. And then they also do this crimson clover variety called Kentucky Pride. This is supposed to be really good as well. And so this company, Go Seeds, which is out of Oregon, specialize in making some of these high-end cover crop seeds that tend to perform better than some of the standard varieties that have been around for a while. And they also sent me this nice article here called "It's Time to Ditch Dixie," basically showing the results from a study that was comparing some of their cover crop varieties to kind of the old school Dixie crimson clover that you might find at your local feed and seed store. So when the University of Illinois did this particular study, they compared the Balanza fixation clover, the frosty berseem clover, the Kentucky Pride clover, and the Dixie crimson clover. And a couple things in these data tables here that just jump out at you. The winter survival rate for the clovers made by Go Seed is way higher than the Dixie crimson clover. Now that's not really an issue for us down here because it doesn't get that cold. But in somewhere like Illinois, if you live up north, that may be an issue. Some of these improved clover varieties are a lot more frost tolerant. And the improved clover varieties also have a better rooting depth. With the Dixie clover, kind of the old school clover, you're looking at about 18 inches of root depth. The other ones are 2 foot deep or more. You also get a lot more weed suppression with these new clovers. You know, 97% weed suppression as opposed to 56 with the Dixie clover. So if you're into growing cover crops, whether it be to benefit your garden or for livestock forage or for both, you might want to go check these guys out. Their website is goseed.com. Now they don't sell direct. You would have to buy from a distributor online, and I think they have a list of distributors on their website, but they do have a lot of good information on their site telling you why some of these, you know, improved, more recently developed varieties are a lot better than some of the old school varieties out there. Okay, now for the work we need to do in the greenhouse today. So we got 2 trays here we're going to be filling up with lots of different seeds. As far as the other stuff we have going here, here's a few of those late tomatoes we planted, some of those giant ones, Orange Peach, Turkey Creek, that a viewer sent us, some of those Armageddon peppers. They're coming along okay. Still a little ways to go before we're ready to put those in the ground. This is what's left over from our pumpkin transplants. We've been giving a few of those away. We'll probably ditch them before too long, but I've just been keeping them alive in case anybody wants any. And then we got our herbs here, which are doing pretty well. Basil's looking pretty good. Still not big enough to transplant, but it's getting there. We've got our watermelons, which will need to be put in the ground soon, our seedless, and our pollinizers there. And then we've got all these extra plants here. I've actually given away quite a bit. I don't think we're going to have many that go to waste. Still looks like a lot of plants. We had probably about 3 times that much. So we've been sharing the tomato and pepper plant love, and hopefully we get rid of all those there pretty soon so everybody can enjoy them. So the first thing we need to get planted today is okree. I always like to transplant okree in spring, although it might be warm enough now to get some decent germination if we just direct seeded it, but it might be kind of slow. We'll get better consistent germination if we start them in here and then transplant them out into the garden. So that's what we'll do. Now I've got a lot of different varieties here that I've never tried before. I'm excited about trying. We love doing okree trials around here, just comparing all these different varieties. And these are varieties that aren't as easy to find at maybe an online seed source. I'll try to go through all of them here. So the first one I've got is called Dwarf Bush Longhorn. And supposedly this is one that you're not supposed to prune. You're supposed to just let it bush out. It's a smaller dwarf okree variety. That one's going to be tough for me because I like pruning my okree, but we'll let those bush out and see how they do. So we got that one, and then a bunch of these little packets. We got one called Eagle Pass, Bradford Family Okree, Jade Okree, Stewart's Z-Best Okree, Beck's Big Buck Okree. That one's called a snapping okree, whatever that means. And then Gold Coast okree. So we got about, I don't know, 6 or 7 different varieties here that we're going to try. So we're just going to plant probably enough to have, I don't know, 8 or 9 or 10 transplants of each of these. And then we'll probably give some away. And as far as our trials go, given the room I have right now, I'm probably just going to plant about, I don't know, 4 to 5 plants per variety. That should give us plenty for comparison's sake. And since I'm not going to be using an entire tray for all those okree seeds, I'm going to use the other half of the tray for some more watermelon seeds here. Now this is a variety called Alibaba, and we got a viewer named Alan who has raved and raved about this variety, said I need to try it. So we're going to plant some of these. We're going to kind of succession plant watermelons. We did this last year and it worked pretty well. So I've got those transplants that are ready to go in the ground in the next few days. I showed you those earlier. We're going to start these now, and we'll plant these, you know, probably a month or so after those first ones are planted. So those other ones will be nice and, you know, ready, harvested, and then these will come along maybe a month or so after that. Give us a nice little continual harvest of watermelons there. I don't know much about this variety, Alibaba, except that Alan says it's a great one, so we're going to give it a try. So we'll do our okree seeds first here, and I've got my Pro Mix pre-moistened, so we'll make a little dibble there. If you've never tried transplanting okree and you have a seed starting set up, I would highly recommend giving it a try. You'll tend to get better germination if you grow them in a controlled environment like this. Although when things get nice and hot outside, okree's pretty easy to germinate direct seeding too. I think I'm just going to do 1 seed per cell on these. I got 9 cells per row, and I probably only need 5 or so plants per variety. And if any of you out there have ever grown any of these okree varieties that I mentioned earlier, definitely let me know about that in the comments below. Tell me which ones you like, maybe which ones you didn't like, so we can kind of know what to expect. Alright, so we got all our okree seeds in the cells. Now we're going to do this Alibaba watermelon here. I probably shouldn't have put any Pro Mix right here because I don't think I'm going to use those cells in the middle. It'll be alright. Not wasting but a few handfuls of it there. Won't be too bad. I'm going to go ahead and plant both packs of these Alibaba seeds. I think there's 25 seeds per pack. That way I'll have enough, and I'm sure I can find somebody who will want some watermelon transplants. And it looks like there's way more than 25 seeds per packet. So we'll just go ahead and plant all of these. Maybe we will end up filling this tray here. Alright, so okree seeds are in, watermelon seeds are in. As far as the okree goes, I'm planning on doing that trial with all those different varieties in the spring, and then we always do a second planting of okree in the summer. And for that one, I'm probably just going to do a big plot of the Ruiz okree. That way we can save a lot more of those seeds and offer them to some of you guys. Now let's plant the flowers in the other tray. Ideally, I would already like to have had these flowers started in the greenhouse, had transplants pretty much ready to go right now, but just now getting around to this. So we got several different types of flowers we're going to be planting, just like they sent us the giant pumpkins and the giant tomato seeds. The folks at Heavenly Hills Homestead also sent us some giant sunflower seeds, so we're going to try a few of those, see how big those get. We've got a lot of stuff here that we plant every year when we interplant flowers in the vegetable garden. We've got some Baneri zinnias, we've got some cosmos. Those giant orange marigolds we grew this past fall, we really like those. So we're doing the giant orange, and Johnny's also has a giant yellow. So we're going to mix the two together and, you know, have yellow and orange in the same row. I really like those. And then we've got ageratum, which I grow every year, a really heat tolerant flower that I like. And another heat tolerant flower is celosia here. So we're going to get all these started in that second tray there. So let's start off with the sunflowers, and we'll probably end up planting more sunflowers than this once things warm up a little bit. We grow them as a cover crop sometime. I wanted to plant a couple of these giant ones just to see how big they get. So this one is the West Virginia state record at some point. This one here was the 2020 Minnesota state record. So we're going to try both of those and see how they do. Well, look at those seeds right there on that West Virginia state record. Those are some unique looking sunflower seeds there. They're also absolutely massive. So hopefully that's a good sign. Maybe we can grow a big one. And then we'll go with our marigolds here. If you've never seen marigold seeds, they do look kind of odd. And it said only 50 seeds per pack, but I believe we got more than 50 seeds there. These seeds are really light and they'll blow away if you're not careful. We'll try to just get one seed per cell. These are a little more costly than just run-of-the-mill marigold seeds, but I think they're worth it. They make nice giant flowers, good for cut flowers. You do have to kind of heal up the plants or give them a little more support so they don't fall over, but once we figured that out this past fall, kind of got the hang of growing them. Then we've got our zinnias, and there's lots of different varieties of zinnias out there, but this Baneri's giant is my favorite because it makes nice big flowers. Just like this variety better than any of the others. I can't remember exactly, but it seems like Seeds and Such had the best price on, you know, getting 100 or so seeds of these. That's why I got them from there. These usually germinate pretty well, so I'll try to just get one seed per cell. If you look around online, there's a Oklahoma type zinnia. I think there's California type zinnia. But if you really want the Mac Daddy zinnia, go with the Baneri. Next will be our cosmos. You can see those seeds are kind of elongated, almost like the marigolds, although they're not the same color as the marigolds. And we grow cosmos every year. I learned last year that if I go in and kind of keep them pruned, they do a lot better. They do tend to bite the dust once things get real hot in the summer. But they usually do pretty good all throughout the spring, you know, up until about July or so. And they just don't really care for our humidity at that point, it seems. And these last two here, these look like big packages, and I don't know why they use such a big envelope here, because these seeds are tiny. I'll show you. So there's probably envelope inside this envelope. Yep, there it is. So we have the seeds inside here, and it's hard to see there. Move them around. They are really tiny. So if I get more than one seed per cell with these, it is a-okay. It's almost impossible to singulate these because they're so tiny. As long as we get at least one seed per cell, we're good. Now these ageratum seeds, I actually put those in a little vial, and these are actually pelleted, which is good, because if they weren't pelleted, they would be so tiny. So being pelleted actually helps us be able to singulate them somewhat. And then we'll just cover all our seeds with perlite before we water them in. Now I'm sure most of you are somewhat familiar with a lot of those flower varieties or flower types we planted. The one you may not be as familiar with is the ageratum. And if you've never tried growing ageratum, I would highly recommend it. The blooms don't get that big. It's not really a cut flower. It just makes these little round, kind of bluish, purplish blooms. But the native bees love them. So the little tiny native bees come in and just are all over these things. So it's a great way to bring pollinators in your garden. And I always recommend planting flowers amongst your vegetables if you can, if you have the space. Brings in beneficial insects, brings in pollinators. So If you haven't tried ageratum, give it a try. There it is. There's several different varieties out there. We're growing one called High Tide ageratum. Plants are supposed to get a little taller. Ageratum typically doesn't get very tall. It's only a foot or two tall, but this one's supposed to get a little taller, so we'll see how it does for us. And this is where all those flowers are going to go when the transplants are ready. Pulled up my collards recently because they were bolting. We had some broccoli and cauliflower that had been harvested. So we got a nice bit of space right here to the right of that garlic. Some of this kale here is looking like it's starting to bolt, so we've just kind of been enjoying the last of it, and we'll probably pull this up in the next few weeks and give us even more room for flowers. So now let's take a look at our tomatoes. I'm going to tell you what I've been doing to help kind of green them up a little bit as they're newly transplanted. In this plot right here, we've got all our determinate tomatoes and our peppers and eggplant over there. Water spots look pretty big. I accidentally left the drip tape on overnight last night. Didn't mean to do that. I fell asleep and forgot to come turn it off, but it'll be all right. Got a little more water on than I wanted, but I think it'll be okay. We can see here, starting to get some nice growth on these guys. Got some nice color on those plants here, and they're starting to take off. And for our indeterminate tomatoes here, this wind has been kind of rough on them today, but they've been looking pretty good. I did have one that broke during one of the wind storms we had last week. It didn't kill the plant. I was actually able just to pull some dirt around it, and it looks like it's going to make it just fine. Starting to get a few blooms on some of these. See a little bloom on that guy right there. We've also been able to get these nice and green, as they weren't this green just a few days after we transplanted them. So what we've been doing on our tomatoes, peppers, and even eggplant is some early foliar feeding to kind of provide some of those nutrients until the plant roots can actually start obtaining the nutrients from the soil. Now, I had heard a good bit about foliar feeding in the past, but I've never really tried it. Well, we had someone on our tomato planting video comment and say that it's really good to do it with new transplants because it's going to take a little bit for those roots to kind of branch out and be able to get the nutrients that are in the soil. And that especially makes sense with how deep we planted our tomatoes. So we've got a little plug of seed start mix there, and we're putting that thing, you know, almost a foot deep down into the soil. Yes, we're going to get roots along that stem that was buried, but it's going to take a little while for those roots to develop and actually capture those nutrients in the soil. And so far, I really like what I'm seeing as far as the foliar feeding goes. I could see a significant difference in the color of the plants just a day or two after spraying them with some of this AgriThrive right here. Now, from what I've read as far as foliar feeding goes, it doesn't do a whole lot to supply the major plant nutrients, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, but it does really help in supplementing those micronutrients, magnesium, calcium, things like that. And from what I've read, you want to foliar feed with something like fish emulsion, compost tea, or this AgriThrive here. You don't want to foliar feed with a synthetic fertilizer because that could burn the leaves if that residue sits on there. And as far as when you should foliar feed, I read that it helps with new transplants that are just in the ground, don't have roots to absorb the soil nutrients yet. Also, when the plants are flowering, seems like the foliar feeding can boost fruit production. Also, foliar feeding with compost tea, I've read, I haven't tried, but I'd like to try it this year, is also going to help, you know, control some plant diseases that you might get on your tomatoes, peppers, eggplant, those kind of things. But the time of the day when you actually do this foliar feeding is pretty important. You don't want to do it during the middle of the day when the sun is the hottest, because those plant leaves have their stomata closed up, and so they're not going to be real receptive to anything you spray on them. You want to do it either early in the morning or late in the evenings when it isn't so hot outside. And so what I've been doing about twice a week is foliar feeding, or just spraying the leaves on the plants with some of this AgriThrive fruit and flower. And if you want to give this stuff a try, you can use the code LazyDogFarm and get 10% off your order on AgriThrive's website. And also been adding this complete disease control. This is really good stuff as far as an organic disease control on things like tomatoes. Last year we injected this through our drip system, and probably will start injecting some through our drip system soon. but it also helps to spray it on the leaves as well. We'll be injecting the AgriThrive as well once those plants get some more roots established. But right now, the foliar feeding with these two seems to be helping a lot. So the way I've been doing this is mixing up about 2 gallons at the time in a little backpack sprayer here. So I put about 2 ounces of this complete disease control. I can't remember the exact rate on this stuff, but 2 ounces or 1 ounce per gallon is about right. And then for the AgriThrive, I've been putting about 2 to 3 ounces in there. And then we'll just make sure we get it mixed good while we're pouring it in there. And then we just want to make sure we get the entire plant coated evenly. And with this complete disease control in there, I like to make sure I get some on the soil around these plants here, because this stuff does help with some of those soil-borne diseases. So I just do a nice little coating around the plant there and move on to the next one. So I had a little bit left over there after doing my tomatoes, peppers, and eggplant, so I went ahead and hit my pumpkins with it, figured it couldn't hurt anything. So if you've not tried foliar feeding with new transplants, you may want to give it a try. If you have done foliar feeding a lot and have additional tips, please share those in the comments below so we can all learn from one another. And to whoever it was that suggested that I try this on the new transplants, thank you, because it has worked very well for us so far. And now that the tomatoes seem to be growing pretty good, putting on new leaves, we'll be healing them soon. So we always like to pull some soil up around those plants there, the determinates and the indeterminates. Then shortly after that, we'll be setting up our trellising system for both, setting up the Florida weave. We'll be sure to show you how we do all that, and then setting up our neat little hanging trellising system on these indeterminate tomatoes. So I hope you enjoyed the video today, and if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to check out our affiliate links below. A lot of great companies we use in our gardens here at Lazy Dog Farm. Even got some discount codes for some of those, so you can take advantage of those discounts. Go check out our website, lazydogfarm.com, where we've got recipes, our garden blog, Lazy Dog Farm merch, and more. If you did enjoy this video, make sure to subscribe, hit that notification button, like and share, and we'll see you next time right here at Lazy Dog Farm.
Oh, farewell. By the beauty of your life,